Hey, so this is the Drunkalogs, a podcast about addiction and recovery in which each guest shares their version of how it was, what happened, and how it is now, and then endures a half-hour Q&A at the hands of your host, Nick Morton. My next guest is a very talented writer and stand-up comedian who created the award-winning web series Bitter Homes and Gardens, as well as its hilarious spin-off FIELDING'S SNACK vlog. She is also the host of a monthly show at the Hollywood Improv called Eat, Pray, Fuck. I have seen her perform stand-up many a time, and still I was surprised by how hard she made me laugh in this interview. Won't you please welcome Fielding Edlow. How it was, what happened, and what it's like now. So,
okay.
Fielding Edlow. Take
it
away.
Thanks,
How was
Nick.
it?
How was it? Well, it's funny now. It's been a while.
How long have you been sober?
So I just celebrated 21 years
Right.
in December,
Wow.
Which makes me feel like a Jewish Jessica Tandy, like so fucking old. Like I have this joke where I'm like, I don't even say my time in Hollywood meetings because they're so grossed out. They're like, ew, what?
What did Jessica Tandy look like when she was young? I wonder. Like,
Well, I'm referring the driving Miss Daisy.
I know.
I look like Barbara Hershey.
Like Jessica Tandy was old for so long.
No, that's
like,
what I mean. She was always like, do you
even,
think Judi Dench and Helen Mirren were always like
yeah,
pterodactyls?
right.
Like they were never,
They were
I'm sure they
stunners
were
at some
like
point.
blowsy, hot broads. Oh my God, what am I like a sexist Jesse Helms? Oh my God. I actually need a meeting. So this is really
This is
great.
good.
Yeah, this is
I
good.
do
so,
too.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So
Yeah,
what it was like. I mean, it's so funny. My first instinct when you said that, I was like, super fun.
Right,
Because it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I would go to meetings and people were like, ugh, they'd look at me and be like, you were a high bottom.
Right,
Whatever,
right.
if you don't
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
high bottom is. But so I drank from hardcore. I grew up in New York City. So I remember the first drink I was 13. And I remember hating beer. But I was like, I like the way this makes me feel.
Where were you? Were
On
you
like
at,
a street
like,
corner,
oh,
like
right,
probably
with, like,
outside
your-
Bristides on
right.
Madison Avenue, and it was like a tall boy. And I remember I hated everything about it.
But you were like
except
with
how
your
I-
friends,
yeah.
and they like were
I
like,
was
let's
with
do this.
some like
Someone...
New York City, like we were like degenerate hooligans,
Right.
but we were going downtown to clubs.
Right.
So it was just like, and then like maybe my parents are not alcoholics, like we're Jewish, but I remember having like amaretto. Like I also had an eating disorder, so it's like sugar is actually almost my first
Right.
crazy like physical addiction, which took
Yeah.
me years even after coming into AA. I dealt with sugar.
Right.
I mean, still, but, it's funny. My best friend says, like, I am an alcoholic, but my best friend's like, I feel like it's third down the list for you. Like, it's like people, sugar, then booze.
Right.
On some level. And, like, she's right in a way.
Right.
Like, but anyway, like, I'm such a fucking Al-Anon too. But, like, I'm, like, nice cellular. Like, I feel like I came out of my mom being like, do you like me?
Right.
Like, that's so pronounced.
Are you the eldest child?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I know everyone thinks I'm an only child. I'm not. I have a brother 6 years younger.
Right.
So, I just started, it was just like
So you had
took
that
off.
first beer and
And it was like, I loved that my soul just like relaxed and collapsed. It was
Yeah.
just like, because I didn't even know, and I didn't know literally until I was like 25 or 26 that like I had high anxiety, really self-hating. I mean, you always hear that, like, I don't feel like I'm enough, but it was like so pronounced that I walked around with my shoulders up here and I just could never settle.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it just wasn't, my parents, it was just like, I drank like a male alcoholic right away, like Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, shots, and then it was always
And,
tied
like,
to
from-
doing something, 14.
Right. And you're like going to parties at that point.
So we're
in
going
New
to
York?
parties, drinking, like with my girlfriends. But I was the one, like, while everyone else was like kind of just drinking moderately and
Right.
being normal, like the John Hughes movie, I was the one who was like walking on the ledge in the
Right.
building and not giving a shit.
Yeah.
Like taking pride in how little I cared
Right.
about myself almost.
Yeah.
And just very... and just very shut down. Like, I couldn't tell my friends if I had an issue with them. I was like a robot or this personality.
When you
magician.
drank, was it like now Fielding's gonna unload?
I mean, it was like I would always, it was like, here she goes. Like, I feel like I was a whore. I was a whore.
Did your friends kind of love that? I mean, it's like, oh yeah, I hear, because
I mean, to my credit, I mean, I was in the Heathers, and like they were kind of like that too, but in a different way.
Sure.
I would say that like I was.
This was a chance for you to get much deserved licks in, like.
Well, yeah. The other thing was that the thing that was weird is concomitantly, I was like, when I started drinking, I was still the skinny gymnast who was not like, I was the least hot one of my friends, which I carry I was the one who guys would go to be like, how can I get Jocelyn?
Right.
And that was like, and then I went away to France one summer, and I came back, and they're like, who's the new girl? Like, I had to check my new breasts at like Pan Am or whatever. It was like this thing where it just took me a while to even develop or feel sexual, and like, so my thing even was always, I would act out sexually, but with guys who could, like, I lost my virginity like in a bathroom at a party. Right. Like, I just didn't care. Which was sad. Is that dude
still around? Do you know? Do you remember?
I check him out on Facebook. So he looks like a Hitler, look like Hitler youth group.
Right.
You know, but it was like, I did that. I think he said to me one time, like, just so you know, we're not going out.
Right.
You know, like, God forbid. And then I remember the guy who did become my boyfriend, didn't want to tell people in the beginning. So it was like, there's something, it just took me a while to.
It's also dudes.
It's dudes. Yeah. I just saw him at my high school reunion. He like tried to make an amend to me, and I was like, shut up.
Is he sober?
No.
Right.
and I fucked all his friends. I was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. I got you back. Which he kind of alluded to, like that was why I did it. But everything was just so I just was in, it was almost like I was in a long-standing gray out or something.
Yeah.
I just was, but I was in the cool group. So it was like, so you were asking, we went to like Nell's or the Saint or the Limelight. Maybe Limelight was later. Fun. Yeah, it was really fun. Guess what? Like, and I remember my mom was always trying to like tape the door, or glue the door so I wouldn't sneak out. Right.
I mean, I'd go to Nell's when I was like 14. I mean, and I was like, I looked like I was 11. I was like, and they'd be like, come on.
Oh, right. Oh, I've never waited. I've never bought Coke, and I've never waited.
Right.
I mean, I bought Coke in college, but like, they were like, come on in. Right. So it was, it was, I mean, it was a lot of cabs. I just remember being in cabs, puking in cabs, having drunk, sex in cabs. Like, just like
jostled around.
Yeah. Total jostling everywhere. So it was a lot of, anyway, so I go to college.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to UPenn.
Right.
And it was basically just a lot of the same.
Right.
But now it was like on performance enhancing, like almost. I mean, to the point, it was more like, I didn't really Coke. I still wasn't I did it occasionally, but it was, I fell into the group with these New York City Jappy girls who were just,
Did you have friends who came with you from New York to Penn?
That's an interesting question. I didn't, but I knew all these girls just like from other private schools in New York where we knew of each other. But I didn't come with a good friend.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it's funny when they all went, like all of them just took off one semester for like the Europe homestay.
Right.
And I would like reinvented myself junior year because I was like, I'm not tied. I'm not this hostage.
Right. Yeah.
Where they're like telling me who to hook up with. And
right.
I mean, I was like a follower.
Right.
But I still did well. I was but like the group I was in would be like, Rachel passed her French proficiency. Let's get fucked up. And on like a Tuesday.
Right, any excuse.
You know what I mean? Like,
I'd
when
be
we were,
I'm in.
Right? And we would laugh hysterically. You know what I mean? Or we were the girls who were like mean. We could be mean and just like take over the flight deck in Fidel and be like, let's drive to Atlantic City. And we would drive.
Right.
I mean, I think I drove drunk once with Slug's car. This guy named Slug had a crush on me. I'm like, I'm going to drive your car. So
he was friends with Kavanaugh, right? Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. They were best friends. Yeah. They were in a devil's triangle with Marcy Weinblatt. Anyway, so and then I got a boyfriend. It was like, and that was a miracle. I was so afraid to connect with a man. Like I was like drunk the whole time with this boyfriend, and I know he's cheating on me the whole time, which I found out later. And then I was in acting school, but I used it.
Were you studying acting at Penn?
I fell in second semester senior year it was a lottery, and it's like so hard to get in, and I got in as a senior. It was only freshmen who were declaring a major and senior, and I got in out of this like almost 500 people.
Right.
And then it was my favorite class.
I'm
it was
sure.
The one I
How
scheduled
great.
at like afternoon, so I could wake up.
Yeah, and do it.
And I had a crush on the teacher, like all my issues, but he wrote me a recommendation to go to Neighborhood Playhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So
Where is that? Is that in New York?
An acting school in New
And
York
that's
City.
a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
but it's good.
no, it's a big deal to get invited back the second year. David Mamet went,
like there
and
was
some people.
someone there that I was just hearing about who did Neighborhood.
It's
Playhouse.
prestigious, but I wouldn't say it was that difficult.
Billy on the Street. Is
Probably, maybe,
Billy
yeah.
Eichner?
I just saw him Friends
Maybe.
from college. He's so good in.
Really?
Side note.
Oh,
you have
interesting.
To see this
I haven't seen it, but I.
it's the funniest thing
is
I've
it
seen
good,
on
really?
television. Yeah.
Maron was interviewing him, and I think it was Mark Maron. He was just sort of talking
I
about
gotta
how
see
that
that.
character evolved.
Oh,
And I feel like it
interesting.
was Neighborhood Playhouse, but I don't know anything
Oh,
about that
I
world,
wanted to look
so
up
it
that
could be.
episode.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So and what was that like?
The Neighborhood Playhouse.
Yeah.
Oh, that was where it was like beyond. It was like in full force was Coke, like alcohol, and then I was throwing up all the time. Like I was heavily.
And are you
bulimic.
having these like intense affairs with other actors and stuff? That's where
Well,
I
that's
just
the thing. I was
imagine,
so like fucked up and had such an intimacy disorder that it was
Right.
like I would just like, who was I fucking at that time? I had this amazing friend Sage who was like, who's a model, and she was like this redheaded she was like a redheaded Marilyn Monroe, and she would just get these texts like in class, being like, "Do you want to meet Mario later downtown?" And I'd be like, "Yeah," right. And it was like, and she'd give me drugs
Right.
for dance class to
Right.
get through. So anyway, I had those. But I had a good friend, Nick. I don't think I started fucking him until later. I was like, I wanted to be an actress. And I was never late, but I wasn't good.
Right.
I was so like violently uncomfortable in my own skin still.
Did you come back for the second?
Yeah, so I
right?
wasn't invited back, and it was like gut. Like, and my dad's, and this was like a
You
trauma.
weren't invited back.
I was not.
Right.
And I get why. You know what I
Right.
mean? I was so, I wasn't so, and I was acting out. And I remember my dad being like, well, if you had any talent, you would have been invited back.
That's supportive.
And I remember being like, you don't understand,
Right. You don't understand how hard it is.
Yeah, you don't get it. So it's like I took a year off and worked at like Golden Books Family Entertainment, like a children's book, while I continued to take classes because it was like, I don't even know how I believed him. I didn't believe in myself, but I loved it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like so many like great artistic success stories are just about loving the thing you're doing.
Exactly.
And then you're just like, well, whatever. I don't, it doesn't matter if I find success or not because I'm doing the thing I love. And then inevitably.
Right. I didn't even know if it was a calling or any of
Right.
that. It just felt like
It seemed,
I could maybe express myself that way.
I don't do a lot of acting, but when I do, I'm like, this is so fun. It's
Right.
really fun.
It is so freeing, especially when years later, Larry would say he's responsible for my acting now.
Right. Oh, right.
But it helped break open, like, how they have the thing in A where they're like, you peel the layers to get to the onion. You peel layers.
Right.
So to me, it was like the artichoke.
Yeah,
to get to the heart because I was
Did
like,
you feel like you got to something like
later
fundamental
on,
through acting?
Or just that I couldn't. I still have problems expressing myself,
Right.
but I could access that or live in that sort of artifice. Real.
It's great
artifice.
that though you even had that like opportunity to go down that path. I felt like when I was in college, like there wasn't even that possibility of like
anything creative.
like taking yourself, taking your creative abilities seriously and exploring them and cultivating them. Like it was just not something that really went on. But
yeah, it was. That saved my life.
Yeah.
Along with I finally got a therapist who basically got me sober.
Right.
But that saved my life.
So what was going on in the sort of the depths?
The depths. So, I did end up sleeping with a very inappropriate person,
Right.
which was a bottom. Like
Right.
not like just younger than me.
Yeah.
And it was like,
oh.
no. Yeah. Like I used to have this joke when I did it where I would be like, close and open your eyes. And I'd be like, that's how long it lasted.
Right.
It was just sad. It was sad. Like, cause I felt like I knew at that point, like most drunk 20s women who had slept with a teenager, like they would have just kissed him and
Right.
laughed about it. But I fucked him.
Right.
Like,
Good for
did I have to
you.
do that? And then he like pages me at my hostess stand afterwards.
Where
And
were you working at that point?
Campagna in the Union
Right,
Square.
right.
And I had this apartment on 22nd and Park, and I would just walk through the garage to go to Campagna. And I remember
And how old were you?
I was 24. That's
Right.
when I got sober. So, and I remember this was so degrading and humiliating. It's like, so he called me, and for a second, I was like, I thought he was calling to ask me to brunch, but he was crying because we didn't use anything, and he was scared I gave him something.
Oh,
like
God.
And that was like, I mean, he's not wrong, I guess.
Right.
And thank God, the fact that I never had an abortion, never got anything from anyone is a miracle.
Right.
But
still, you're like, really? Like, that's your person. That's
and also,
the
what
thing
a
you're worried
nerd.
about,
I'm
right?
like, go
really?
fuck yourself. Like, maybe, you know what
Did I
mean?
get something from you? Obviously not.
I was like, did you just take sex ed at Dalton? Anyway, the boyfriend I had in college, I was just, again, the Al-Anon, always obsessed with the guy. If you can track my history, the alcohol just runs with the guy. So he called me November 1997, was like, I have to talk to you. And I was like, he's either in jail or he got someone pregnant. And he's the thing that was like my white whale, or that's the thing that was going to save me. And he got someone pregnant.
Right.
So I went out that night with like Nick, or like 3 guys had keys to my house. And we were just going, and I remember I went to Swift, this bar in the East Village, and I did a shot, and then the bartender gave me another one, and I was like, I love you.
Right.
And then I do this shot, and I don't know if it was white light or what it was, but nothing happened in my body.
Right.
Which was, it never happened. It was
yeah.
really, so I paid attention to that, plus the news from Kevin.
Right.
And then a month to the day later, I went to Peter Luger's.
And was he going to stay with that woman that he got
Yeah,
pregnant?
so then, and then of course he was going to be with her.
Right.
And like, that was Grace. And I've looked, it's so interesting because her age is my sobriety.
Right.
So I've looked her up on Facebook, so when I see her, I'm like, that's my sobriety.
Right. That's wild.
Yeah. It's and she's like this beautiful girl. And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
For being alive, because you saved, I mean, I'm really grateful I came. I had this grand sponsor who was on a soap opera in New York, and she used to make every conversation go, darling, after we get off the phone, you get down on your knees and you thank God you came in early. You don't know what it's like. I came into my 50s. You fucking get on your knees in the bathroom. And I was like, I heard that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been really fucking hard.
Yeah.
So, I just went, I was actually supposed to check out OA first, but then I realized I got to deal with put the plug in the jug before, because it wouldn't work if I'm drinking. I know. Where was I hemorrhaging is my thing now, because I've been in so many programs. And then
this guy, so you take the second shot.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything. No. And then what
happens?
And
my thought is, I'm fucked. Like, my best friend has left me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fucked.
Definitely been there.
Like, what happens?
Right.
Like, I've been, like, the weird part, the paradox, or the irony is that, like, I'm also, like, the addicts are, like, weird control freaks on the other side. So, like, my thing was, like, literally what happens? How do I do anything without? Because my therapist said in that year had been like, try to go on a date without your 4 glasses of wine before. And I'd be so anxious, my hands would be shaking.
No, it's the hardest, especially that first, like, I remember sitting down to dinner with people, not even dates, just like social things, and like just getting past that first, like, are you going to drink anything? And it's like, no, I mean, I am, I really, really will. I'm not going to, but it's only because if I do, I'll kill myself.
Right.
And then everyone's like, wow, what? This is intense.
Yeah, like, what? Are you the Tasmanian devil? Like, that's a little too more than we needed to hear. And you're just like, yeah, it's just such embedded in the fabric. I mean, I would be like, and then I remember when Princess Diana died, which was that couple months before. I remember drinking wine by myself, like, don't die, you pretty bulimic princess, you know? It was like, I don't know. It was just like, it got sadder and sadder. I was able to step outside myself and watch myself drinking a bottle of wine by myself, praying for Princess Diana alone in my apartment, and knowing I would always be alone. Right. And that I would never get, I guess I knew I would never have a relationship, and I didn't have a relationship for 8 years. Right. Even when I got sober.
Right. So what was like the straw that broke the camel's back? Was it that second shot, or was it, I mean,
I guess with the confluence of factors was like Kevin getting a girl pregnant, because I really was like, we'd still like keep it, like I still was like, maybe I'll move to Houston. Right. Ew. Be like, teach improv to kids. The sugar, like diabetes develop. I would, whatever. So then I was like, it was Kevin. And then the whole year my therapist had been like,
you need to get sober, right? Or
or she'd say things like, you have sex with guys without condoms. You want to talk about your dying? Right. Yeah. In 10 years? And I was like, oh, you're so dramatic, Julie. I didn't call her Julie. So I guess it was, and I'm more anxiety than depression. Right. But I had a deep well of sadness of just like, I I didn't feel real love for my parents, although I know they love me. I wasn't able to see it for what it was at that point. I didn't love myself. I even had a hard time with friends. It was such a drunk friendships. And I didn't know how much I longed for connection.
Right.
Like, I felt like there was no tangible, real connection in my life, which is, I know how I feel now. Sometimes I feel like I haven't talked to a friend in a while on the phone, or I need to go to coffee, and I felt isolated. I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, but sometimes I'll feel like profoundly isolated, and I'll be like, I had breakfast with people like 45 minutes
I know.
ago. Like,
no, I
what's
know.
wrong with me?
But I agree too. You're like, but was I real? Were they real?
Like, what did I miss? Yeah.
Or am I just sad about something else?
Yeah,
and
totally.
I think that could be an addict. Yeah, because loneliness is huge. I mean, my husband, if he had his way, would have a parade of like just smelly, grungy character actor friends just coming in.
I'm with him. I would like that too.
I'm the opposite.
Right.
But he just wants like people around
everyone
all the
around
time.
all the time.
And his friend Joe is like over every second.
Right.
And I'm
right.
like, oh, it's horrible.
So then is there a point where you say, this is it? Like, I am getting sober?
Yeah. So, okay. My last therapy session, I had my acting. So I'm taking acting, like private classes.
Right.
Which was like a saving grace. And I remember I have this therapy session where I admit to her that I can't drink anymore. It was around the shot time, and
you just can't control it. You mean, or you just can't?
I guess I knew I was an alcoholic, and I knew that I would never have anything I wanted in life if I kept drinking, and that I didn't want the label, but I was like, "You're right. I can't just have one.
Yeah.
I don't want one.
Right,
and I'll just try it." And it was like exorcism, or it was like something left in my body. It was like this thing, and I remember meeting my friend Jill because we had a scene together. So I like some misogynist mammoth scene, and we met in this coffee shop at Hell's Kitchen, and she's very intuitive. And I remember we were sitting there, and she goes, "I don't think you can go to class." And I was like, I can't go to class, and it was
because
I was always grateful to her because because
you were too.
I was just like paralyzed. It was like a good thing, but it was like I could not. I was.
This is
processing.
You've already made. The
it was
decision,
like that day was I was.
You made the
I
decision
surrendered that day
to get sober, and then you're sitting in the coffee shop telling her the story, and she's like, "You're too." Like,
I wasn't even telling her story. I was like, it was like that.
She could
day,
just tell that something was.
It was like reverberating.
Right,
that,
there was like something stuck
yeah.
in the works, and you were.
I needed to just like process.
And so, what did you do?
So I took a cab, and I remember I just went home.
Right.
And normally I'd be like, "Fine, everything was like my big break, or that I can't miss anything." Like fear of missing out was huge. But I was like, it was like I was beaten down, and in a good way. I keep wanting to say, but it was that's what I'm grateful to certain people in your life. Oh, and then and Campagna, there was a sober waiter, by the way, who saw the guy was fucking come in and take over the smoking table in the front and just be horrible.
Right.
And he's like, if those are your friends, then they're not your friends at all, and you should just get sober.
Right.
And I was like, oh, and I was also in an eating disorder group with this model who went to OA and AA, and she was beautiful on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I'm like, well, if she's cool and pretty, I was like, maybe I could.
So what did you do?
Basically, I'm very superficial.
Right. No, I mean, whatever it takes. Sometimes I think like,
right.
That whole notion of like, I mean, I had that same experience where I was like, I'm never going to get the things I want if I keep drinking. Like the life that I want for myself, I know is beyond my grasp if I keep drinking. Now, that's not to say if I stop drinking, I'm going to get those things. But if I keep at it, I know I never will, Exactly.
Yeah. That I think we know because I just wanted to, tamp it down and shut it down. And
And so then how did you get from going home to your apartment to like being
so it must have been around the middle of December.
Right.
It's probably like a last class-ish. And then I just called. I knew that I was I guess with my therapist, I needed to try the program. So I called AA.
You called like the hotline.
I called the and this is a crazy story.
Wow.
So I called the hotline. I did.
You just don't hear that much,
I called Intergroup.
Right.
I picked up the phone. I think I called 411. No, I did. I was like, there wasn't. I
to the young folks listening, 411 is information.
I turned off my gramophone and my Dean Martin records,
Victrola.
and Victrola. And then Ben Franklin had just invented the fucking bifocal. And I called Nick, who answers the phone, Nick B. And you ask why I know. So this is
Nick
what's...
Bia is at Interparty? Nick B.
Yeah, is answering
that's
phones.
Right.
And you ask why would I even remember that? So I'm going... This is how much of a, like, Jewish control freak I am, because I knew I was, like, I'm in. Like, I knew I was like, all right, I am good. I am in. But I knew I was going to Arizona with my family. So while I'm talking to Nick, hi, I need a meeting. Oh, and I was such a bitch. I was like, I need a meeting that's close. I'm not walking. I'm not going far. Just make sure it's close. And he's like,
How did you know to call?
I don't know. I mean, isn't that obvious?
I guess.
What else would I have done? Shout out the window. I need mustard seed.
I would Google AA.
There was not.
There was
that.
no Google.
No.
I would take the test online.
There was
so
no.
funny that didn't. Of course, that wasn't there. Then.
I'm trying to. I didn't have a. No, did I have a computer at that apartment?
I mean,
no. Wait,
right?
This is
97. 97. You maybe you're right on the cusp there of like.
I had the Blueberry iMac on Christopher Street.
Right.
And I was sober then.
Right.
I don't think I had a computer then.
That's wild.
Isn't that insane? Because it's like.
And did you know other sober people aside from the guy who worked at El Campagna or whatever?
Just that guy who wasn't even really a friend,
right.
and this woman in my eating disorder group,
right.
who gorgeous, sexy.
So Nick B, what does he say?
So this is crazy. Okay, so this is what's fucking insane. Why I knew like God did this for me because I don't know why I say this, because I don't trust men, and I don't open up.
Right.
But for some reason on that phone call, I go, hey, can I just ask you something? I got the 22 below them. I go, I'm going on a trip with my family. Like, what am I supposed to do then? And he goes, where are you going? And I was like, I wasn't like the Phoenician, but I was like going to Arizona. And he goes, Phoenix. He goes, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll be there too.
Oh,
we
no
can go
way.
to meetings. And we did.
No way.
Yes.
How did you find him once you were there?
He exchanged numbers.
Right.
I go. By the way, I lose my job at Campagna because
you don't have cell phones then, do you?
No.
Right.
I remember. Oh my God, that's so weird. I haven't thought about this in like 20 years either. I remember the pad by the phone writing Nick B.
Oh my
and he
God.
came to pick me up, and I remember my dad going, "Now that's a guy you should be with. He's a real upstanding," because I think he was a cop.
Right.
But it was no. But here's what's so crazy. Like I
never
never feared that he was going to be sexual or like. I never had that thought. Right. But that's crazy because I've only gravitated to sleazebags in a way and like weirdnesses. Right. But and I remember us trying to find a meeting and it wasn't there. And then he drove me to the mountains and he's like, okay, go look at the mountain. That's your higher power. And then he'd always be like, take candy with you because you never know when you're having a craving. And I was like, listen, I'm a bulimic. I don't need candy. But like, let's ease up on that, buddy. But it was kind of true. And then he was the one who introduced me to Never Had a Legal Drink, which was like my first home group in that. It was
Where is that?
Teenagers in Chelsea.
Right.
I was the old one at 24. I mean, I was like early 20s. So that was an amazing. And by the way, the first meeting I went to, this is what's extraordinary too. I barely raise my hand. When I walk in, I'm late. The guy who's sharing is some Wall Street asshole. I'm like, oh, just another prick like my dad. I don't need this shit. Okay, I become friends with him, and he sends my dad a Christmas card every year.
Still?
Yeah, for a long time. I mean, I
right.
think my dad almost helped him get a job.
Right.
Okay, and then the woman who's speaking, Sarah P., came over to me. They just took me under her wing. And this is where I think like we lack this kind of service nowadays, because I remember this was done for me. And I try to do this for other people. So she takes me, gets the meeting directory, circles every cool meeting or young person's meeting for me, and then writes, this is your sponsor, Anna H., and her number, who was her sponsee. And she was my sponsor for a year and a half, and I ended up working for her in her film production company. Wow. So to me, I feel like we've lost that. Like when in recovery. In Hollywood AA, I really think I'm pretty down, to be honest with you, in some respects, that I think that we're sharing a lot of problems. Right. We're not focused on the newcomer. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it's like I'll go up and just take their number. Right. So you can call them. Yeah. Because I just remember that's how my life was saved. Right. Yeah, totally. And when we go to meetings that are not New York and LA, it is so fucking different. It is different. People are like, hey, where are you staying? Do you know where to go? Can I help you? And the way they greet. Right. I just think New York and LA kind of has their head up their ass a little bit in the terms of the turning it into therapy, forgetting it's a 12-step program, and being like, what I'm sharing is we need to all be examples of the program.
Right.
But my husband says I'm so annoying about this.
I mean, it's fine. I guess I go to the same meeting over and over again with all the same people, and it's almost like there aren't that many newcomers there, so it's
okay.
I have a very weird like.
Yeah, then there you don't right.
It is kind of group therapy, but
and that's like I feel like where you are, like where I'm at, it's been so long,
right?
That, and I've been to so many meetings that I only go to like step,
right,
or where it's like, and also just
how many
being
meetings
a parent.
do you go to a week?
I go to 2 Al-Anon and 1 AA.
Right.
So I feel like, and I say this not almost to be like a self-righteous cunt, which I'm sure I'm coming off as, but I really say it for my own medicine.
Yeah, no.
Do you know what I mean? Like I don't like. So I've left meetings being like I would rather have just gone to a bar.
But it's funny. I mean, I think like when you talked earlier about like how that thing switched in you that day, and I do think that there's something about the way our brains work and the way language works that just sometimes by labeling something or recognizing it, not giving it a label so much as calling it by its name or just identifying it for yourself changes the circuitry in the way that you approach it.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I remember when I was
100%
young.
It's neurological.
Before I got sober, I had this like series of panic attacks, and I went to see a behavioral therapist, and like just talking about it, made it go away almost immediately. I was like, this is crazy.
It is like this like this guy at Perry Street, New York, used to be like, share or die, and I'd be like, he's got a point, and I almost feel like just sharing about something makes like halves the problem, makes it go halfway. I agree. I mean, I think labeling the different. I've gone on in my recovery to just look at the different things that I am like an addict about. So like labeling those has been helpful. So
you got sober. You were
24.
It's 1997. And then how does your life change from that point? Do you stay acting? And
so I'm still. It's funny.
But I'm curious, even back then.
Yeah, it's really funny. I was just thinking about this because another podcast I was on, this Lewis Black came up, who was my first stand-up teacher, and I was sober. Yeah, at Williamstown Theater Festival. That's wild. He changed my life. Yeah. But I've always been acting, but very early on in sobriety, I worked at the Roundabout in their casting department, and she said to me, who I respected her big casting, she was like, "You should do stand-up one day." Right. Just because I made one joke. And I just remember I was like, you should pay attention to that. But I was terrible. Like I tried. I did stand-up.
Did you do stand-up then?
I did.
When did you do your first stand-up thing?
I went to stand-up New York. I wore a necklace that said cunt. Okay, from Patricia Field in rhinestone letters. And like my friend Al Del Bene, who has now moved to Australia, he was a sober comedian. He would coach me. Right. But I did stuff about my dad, and I was way too close to it. And it was like, I feel like a bad monologue from a Christopher Durang play. Like I was like, this is what I started with. Is it incest if your dad just wants to date you? That was my opener, which like could work now, I guess.
I think it's hilarious.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I may bring it back.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, it was good, but I didn't really have the shit to back it up, and I hadn't worked through it at all. I mean, I like barely. I don't even think I'd read my seminal book. So, like, literally, everyone wanted to see me because like, feeling so funny, but it was like 12 people came, and the owner was like, "Oh my God, do 15 minutes." Right. I don't even think I had 3.
Right, you're like, what?
What? And like my parents were there with like their friends. They were like, "We're gonna see Fielding," and I was like, and like it wasn't the explosion it is now, where every fucking person thinks they're a comic.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying I'm Jenny Garofalo, but it was like, it was easy to get stage time.
That's wild.
And in New York, but I was and then I'd show up. And I wouldn't go on. I was too petrified. I just wasn't ready to do stand-up. And I didn't do stand-up until I was pregnant. Which
really?
From 26 to 38.
I did
improv. I did all improv, and that was like the most healing thing.
When did you study with Lewis Black?
Yeah, so I went... That was
you
just
were
one
pregnant?
summer.
Oh, that was
Lewis Black got me pregnant. I broke it here. So I was like my first sober summer. I was an apprentice at Williamstown Theater Festival, and he taught
So you were like
stand-up.
6 months sober at that point.
Exactly. At my first sober kiss.
Wow.
And he was like really mean to me. I feel like he wasn't even nice to me
kind
afterwards.
Of awesome. You're like 25. You're living in Williamstown.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
It's the summer.
Yes. I'm
young.
the only sober person.
Right.
It was. And by the way, I had some really hot like,
I
you know
bet.
who's in my, Jimmy Simpson was in my.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And some
Wow.
other.
He's sort of ageless. It's weird how he is.
Ageless.
I wouldn't have thought he was that old, but.
Oh. Kate Menig. Is that how you pronounce her name? She's like, she always plays Dykes. And
I don't know.
Anyway, it was an exciting, I had exciting people.
No, I mean, you're ageless too. I didn't mean like.
No, you don't
You
have
look
to.
a lot younger than Jimmy.
Thank you. Yeah, Jimmy's crusty but young. I feel like he's young and a young curmudgeon.
Right. It's like
Yeah,
this goes from like baby face to old man.
And I did
like,
just get Botox, but thank you. Yes, I'm very open about it. I was just talking about it with my friend Jody Miller, the comic. We're talking about women need to be more open. So yes, it was this like idyllic halcyon like paradise summer because it was like I got to act, and then you did the rigs for plays while Kate Burton was like on this. You know what I mean? You helped.
No, it's like
usher
you're part
in
of something
your
awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. Oh, so Lewis Black, Richard Kind taught improv, and then Lewis Black. I remember being particularly excited, and he was so like, "Oh, this festival sucks. Everyone's got their head up there." You know what I mean? And so I had to do. I guess that was the first time I ever did it. So not everyone signed up. I signed up, and you had to do 10 minutes, tell a story to 1,000 people.
Whoa!
So I told a story about how. In high school, my boyfriend, we were having sex and the condom got lost inside me. And then I missed my Penn interview and it was like this whole thing. And I remember what was the scariest thing is I had to just say it to Lewis.
Right.
Before I did it.
Right.
And then I'll never forget.
Just like one-on-one?
Yeah.
Right.
And he was just like looking at me the whole time.
Right.
You know, and then he kept being like, just say blowjob. Everyone's so horny. You know what I mean? That's what he said. He goes, literally, just say blowjob over and over. Everyone's like the horniest fucking festival I've ever been to.
Totally.
And
That's
then
hilarious.
I do it and it was like such a high.
Right.
Like it's like I killed, but I was just present.
Yeah.
And then I remember people came up to me and they're like, that was like the next day.
Right.
But I didn't have the constitution or the tenacity or the emotion, the equal to like do it.
Yeah.
You know, but it was that was a highlight of my life, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and I remember I like did it, and I think I was wearing this like see-through tank top. It was like I don't know why, I just didn't care. I was like transparent in every way.
I wonder. Yeah, that's amazing.
That was like that. I feel like it was almost still pink cloud, literally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, but I feel like, and I say this, like I've had such a long, slow recovery. It's insane.
Right.
I mean, it's. You know, it's just taken me like just to chip away at the icing around my heart, the ice around my heart, ice blocks.
How did you meet your husband?
Not in the rooms, but at a writer's group.
Right.
And I remember I had to cast a guy, and I didn't want to cast him because I was like, he's so old. He can't play Mr. Sensitive Ponytail Man. I was like, he's not. And then I remember he's like, I'll do it, right? And then afterwards he's like, I killed it. I killed it.
What were you doing that you guys that you were casting him?
It was so it's just this our friend Kathleen Dennehy runs a writers group that goes from living room to living room, and so that was the first time I laid eyes. I'd seen him. He was in the play The Glory of Living, directed by Philip Seymour Hoffman in New York. So I'd seen it, didn't remember him at all. I was like, I don't remember your detective. So I'm in LA. We would like just kind of talk a little bit. He thought I was a lesbian, like 100%. And then I was putting up. Because I had the great idea to put up Miss Julie in the middle of Hollywood. And, put up a Strindberg play after Coke Free Jap. That's a really good trajectory, you know, like no sense. But I saw
what's
him
Coke Free Jap?
That was my one-woman show.
Oh, no way.
It was my autobiographical
vehicle. I'm sorry. I got way ahead of myself with Larry. So there's obviously a lot of good stuff in here I'm missing.
No, I think we've minded.
You sort of get to like you're talking about the ice around your heart, which made me think, oh well, maybe I'll go to Larry. But like, how'd you get to LA? Like from
Coke Free Jap. Well, you're a real sleuth. Yeah. So the thing that again the most profound game changer for me was like finding writing.
Right.
Even though I'd been acting, which was like such a great foundation as a writer, but so I took this class with Brooke Berman. Where it was weird, is all New Yorkers one summer, and you just write sort of autobiographically, and then she
in New
was
York
like
City?
in New York City just one summer. Oh, and then the private acting class, we had to write a truthful monologue. I remember I wrote 20. I had so much to say,
right? And
then I had to deliver it, and it was all about feeling like I was afraid of touch,
right?
And feeling like this, you know,
at 20,
like Daryl Hannah in the fish tank in Splash, just like I can't handle it,
right?
But it was the rain. So then I remember Brooke looked at me. Same thing with like Amy about stand-up. It's like you feel like when someone's the messenger and you're supposed to pay attention, you know, like pay attention to the signals in your life. And so she was like, you should write a play. Or it was a one-woman show. So I ended up, it was called Hands in Me. Like that's how fucking like, I think I'm Karen Finley or Spalding Gray. So I do it in the Fringe and it's a hit.
Right.
Like 9/11, that's the person who called me, was like my reviewer. You know, it was like, but I would not tell you
Fringe
I was such a great
in
New York City. And I would not sit here and tell you I was a good actress. It was just like, oh, girl, I would like pour a baby wading pool full of like water and vodka bottles. I mean, it was like East Village theater.
Right.
And then I was in therapy at the time, and I remember I still was like, had such this like insane umbilical cord with my dad and my mom, and it was like, she was like, just go to LA. So I hooked up with I visited here for 3 weeks. I loved it, and then I just was like,
you had someone you could stay with.
I had two best friends from
Penn.
from high school, from kindergarten. To my two best friends.
Where'd you go to?
Spence,
but
like they're literally still my best friends.
That's amazing.
I think they'd say it's so loser to still say best friend as a 40-year-old. They're like, well, yeah. So I came out. I brought and then renamed it and rewrote Coke Free Jap. And
so was Hans and Me became Coke Free Jap?
Hans and Me became Coke Free Jap.
Right.
And I mounted it up
mounted
here.
What
is going on?
Hold on, this is getting
at
really
the complex.
intense.
What is wrong with me? Oh my God, I mounted it.
Where did you mount it?
Oh my God, I'm so glad this isn't a show right now. I feel like I'm bright red. I mounted Coke Free Jab. Oh my God. At the Complex Theater with Craig Carlisle.
Oh, nice.
And it got extended. It was like really fun. And then like between productions, I like went to Ojai to like, anyway. And that started just writing out here, which I'm not saying like, Jesus Christ, things took off. But I felt like sort of, you know, buoyed like by these like new reps, or like, it's like, this is something you can do.
Right.
And I remember the guy I was dating at the time was like, he goes, I think the writing's better than the acting. That's the kind of guys I dated. And I was like, you know what? You have a dead ficus in your bathroom, and you can go fuck yourself. Yeah. And then remember I got my review in Variety, and I was like at his house, and I was like, oh, I wish you could just like call out for coffee so I could like, and he's like, I don't know if this is working. Like, and I know I was probably a nightmare. But so that, and then, you know, so I'm like sober out here. But here's the thing. I'm like 30. I'm like 6 years sober. But I'm still violently just insecure, dating guys who are like not beating me up, but just not nice, detached, kind of underperforming, under-earning assholes. Right. Which, you know, spot it, you got it. But like, but I was like I just knew. The thing I can say is, like, I knew that, like, I cannot just stay in AA. I have to look at food. I have to look at money. I have to look at relationships. And I have looked at all those things. And then I have to just keep showing up. Right. Because I know, like, the first year, I feel like there was a lot of, like, just brownie nut blast and Sex in the City in my little treehouse on Hayworth. But I remember almost feeling like I wanted to drink. I would go to Bliss. I don't know if you ever went to Bliss. It's a sad meeting. It used to be fun. I've been there. I went there once and spoke. So there was a comedian at the Comedy Store. I was making some sober jokes. And he was like, "Oh, you should come down and do my do." He was like a secretary of a meeting, so I went and spoke at a meeting there. But yeah, man, I was laughing with one of the other guests. I was like, you got to really want it. You got to really want it to start going to Bliss. It had its heyday. Right. In 2003 to 5.
In what way? Just like it was a
there
raucous
was a lot of cool,
and like fun people
really
there.
Creative, like, you know,
it's funny how meetings sort of go through there.
No, it was a cool, like, it was a place to be at 10 a.m.
Right.
Like, it was awesome. Yeah. I mean, to the point where, again, like the woman who was like, you shouldn't go to that class. And I remember, so I still hadn't had a relationship. You know, I didn't even have sex the first 5 years. Right. Because I was like, I'm not going to do it until they could go to brunch with me. Right. But nothing, you know, my broken picker. But I was like so lonely. And I was like, I've been sober 8 years and I haven't had a relationship. Like, I would say that in gay meetings and they would gasp. Right. So I remember... And just feeling nothing really, I wasn't earning money from writing or acting. So this guy the Burning Desire, and the guy looked at me and was like, you should take that. Like, talk about a bottom. That was a bottom. He's like, literally.
Fuck you, I don't need the Burning Desire.
But I've always prided myself on not taking it because I hate those motherfuckers who are like, I just want to share gratitude. And you're like, no, Veruca. It's actually if you're going to harm yourself or drink.
Right.
It's not gratitude for your cat leaping up on your chaise.
There are some people who just always take the burn. You're like, up, here he goes. He's going for it.
I've complained to the secretary afterwards, and they've like pulled an Al-Anon samurai on me and being like, well, live and let live. You know,
Right.
And maybe they needed it.
Right.
Maybe we all needed to hear him. And I go, oh, go fuck yourself.
Again? We all need to hear him again?
Again? No, go fuck. And then I'm like, I'm never
Every
coming
day
back
this
to this
week,
reading.
I don't
I'm like,
think
that's
so.
not a Burning Desire. Why don't you look up Burning Desire? That's not what that is. Oh my God. I meditated today, by the way. So then I had a breakdown in bliss when I took the Burning Desire. Like not like out of control, but like, you know, when like there's people, you cry. This was like sobbing, like nothing is happening, feeling like self-pity, but like not wrong. Like not that much had happened. I mean, everything had changed, but not that much on the outside.
Yeah.
And then what was so healing was, again, like my issues with guys always and still. Like 3 guys came up to me afterwards and they're like, Fielding, like you're a catch. Like it's gonna, and like, but not even like, nothing sleazy or hitting on me. It was like, no, you're like a great girl.
Right.
And I just took, or just a good person because of AA. And like, I just took it in. And I was like, nothing. All right. I'll borrow your hope.
Yeah.
For another day. Because I just was like, nothing's really changed
it's
that much.
It's also hard to carry that with you sometimes.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, I can feel really good in a meeting about myself and even afterwards. And then I like get back to my desk or my house and I'm like full of just like self-loathing. Totally. And then it's like, I try to remember like I was fine earlier today. I was good. I was a good person earlier today.
Right.
Like,
it creeps up on you and it's so insidious because I'm like, sometimes am I just thirsty or I need to walk around the block? Like I know that sometimes just a walk to the club, like 2 blocks,
just
literally
fucking drinking a glass of water.
No.
And you're like,
no.
oh my God.
Yeah. I remember this nutritionist used to be like, maybe not eating, sometimes it's not sugar, just try to, maybe you're thirsty.
I thought I was
being
suicidal.
so embarrassing. I thought I was suicidal, but turns out I needed a glass of water. I think you should be your memoir. I thought I was suicidal. It turns out I was just a little dehydrated. That's kind of brilliant.
It's kind of brilliant.
Yeah. Maybe we'll co-write.
Yeah, let's work on this.
Yeah.
And God, so how did you like come out of that like sort of loneliness and like sort of shut down thing?
Yeah, so I think like you were saying earlier, just naming it and saying it did 80% of it. That's because I had this like tsunami. I mean, I just a full mask came off. Like a full mask for that. Right. Those 3 minutes, and then it continued a little bit. Like I felt safe to be completely emotionally naked.
Right.
And that was, I had that in New York, but I don't know, Perry Street was always dark, or I don't know if I had that kind of, because you know what, I had shame. I think it was the shame piece and feeling embarrassed that like, people think I have good recovery and I'm the strong woman, but it's like, I'm miserable.
Right. Yeah.
But I also think it was like, I still hadn't dealt with dad stuff.
Right.
You know, that sort of like, not like that weird, invisible, emotional incesty. Like I was like a surrogate. Like he never touched me, but it was like that was like a big, big piece of my addiction. So I had to deal with like that fucking piece. Right. And I literally feel like this year I just like
Are your parents
it.
still together?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's amazing.
Like a live-in divorce.
Right.
So that... And then I think, I don't know what I did. I know that like Debtors Anonymous had been so helpful for me in terms of just feeling autonomous from my father. Right. And like, you're not going to be my fucking accountant anymore. And like, I know what I'm doing QuickBooks now. Right. Like the QuickBook did a lot for me, to be honest.
I love QuickBooks. I mean, I never do it, but when I do, I'm like, this
it's the best thing.
This shit isn't as out of control as I thought it was.
I know.
You know, I'm like, all right, we're a little out of control, but we can.
But isn't it the little things? Like I just went to Bed Bath & Beyond and Larry goes, I can't believe you didn't come back spending $500. He's like, I go, I know, I'm so proud of myself. And like, so it was, again, like just long, like I think improv, and then it was like the other thing was I got invited into this playwriting group, which changed my life. So it's like being around showrunners and playwrights and successful people.
Did you think improv helped?
Oh my God, that was a game changer too.
I mean, because it's funny.
Game
like,
changer.
When like I talk about this on this podcast
Loved
a little
it.
bit, but just about like when young people are trying to get into Hollywood. I mean, I really just want to be like, go take an improv class.
No, I tell everyone that
because you'll like
even
meet
if you're
people,
not going,
like you'll just like
you're
you'll
just a better
learn
person.
about the process.
Right?
You'll learn about what it means to create something. Because you create something all the time in improv. You're always creating. It's a
brilliant tool, technique, practice. Yeah, it's like not about making my idea, amazing. It's like how to make my partner's shitty idea great.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, so UCB, and then I got on this, so I had little teams, like but like practice groups, and that was community.
Yeah.
Like I was,
and you're also vulnerable and open in those situations,
God,
and you make an ass of yourself, and then you have to live with it in the room afterwards.
Right?
I mean, I think it's really
and
healthy.
you can't run. Like in New York, we had Seth Morris. That was my second teacher, and I remember you never forget certain things. Seth was like, told me, he goes, you don't always have to play the wife and the girlfriend.
Right.
And for a guy to say that to me, that was like,
so what would you play instead?
I was a coal miner.
The coal miner.
But that gave me permission. And then I would always play these like horrible guys. And Bob Dassey, who's, I don't know if you know him, he was like this lovely, brilliant, he's with IO. And he's like, I just want to see Fielding play men.
Right.
And that was like another just like, what people have said is like, how I do anything is how I do everything.
Right.
So it's like I saw all my shit. Yeah. And then then the space was in Westwood. I performed like every Friday night with a group of horny UCLA grads. I was
fun.
like team mom. Yeah.
Right.
Like I came back, I cut my honeymoon short to make a show. Literally.
and you were saying you got into a group of playwrights with showrunners and stuff and that kind of.
That was another, because then I was like, I started working with them and hanging out with them. And that was like, I needed some validation.
Right. Yeah.
Which is human. It turns out it's actually intrinsic to the human condition. Right. Like, and that they were like, you're really funny.
Right.
And so I ended up co-writing pilots with two of them.
Right.
One I sold, one I didn't. But it was like, it's funny. If you watch Friends from College, they have this whole thing on co-writing. Because they're like, okay, let's all go away and let you go write. Right. But it turns out the other one can't write a word without the other one.
Right.
It was so cathartic.
Right.
Because it's like, yeah, we're co-writing, but I'm writing every word.
Right. Yeah.
But you're the showrunner and you have story. Yeah. And I did learn a lot, but I can't use this sample now.
Right. That sucks.
But you know what? Larry's like, you gotta let that go. Like literally he's so tired of me saying it. He's like, you have to let that go. Like you actually sold it.
Right. Yeah. That's good.
Code-free jab.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was big. Then really worked out my dad issues with and then and Larry was in that, and I'm, with him, he's had a slip in our marriage. He like came right back. We've dealt with that, and then we ended up, had a child a year, like not long after his slip.
Right.
I mean, he was back.
How long were you guys married before you had your child?
We got married in, I don't even know, 2008, and we had her in 2011.
Right.
Wait,
right.
Yeah. No.
How long did you guys?
2012.
How long did you guys date before you got married?
Oh, that was a big mistake. So I never really had a boyfriend. Like, I just wanted a boyfriend. Like, I'm not trying to be doing a stand-up routine. Like, I really just wanted a fucking boyfriend. And so, but he's like 80, and he'd had girlfriends. He wanted to get married. So it was like 8 months, and then he moved in.
Right.
He asked me to marry him after 8 months. And then I ended up like postponing the wedding twice. And my mom's like, people talk. And I'm like, who cares?
Right.
It's not a Rockefeller.
Yeah, like
we're not booking the Huntington Gardens.
And then how did your stand-up thing become such a sort of a prominent part of your creative life?
It's kind of funny. So I'd had this like huge background in improv and one-woman shows. So I think right when I started, people were like, wow. But it was only because I had this experience of being on stage for an hour.
Yeah, right.
So we were supporting our friend. I'll say it. I don't care. He's never going to listen to this. Or maybe you actually should have him on. It's a great Terry Morados.
I don't know.
He's a Greek.
Right.
He's got a crazy fucking story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Anyway, so he won't mind my saying this. So he's taking Leslie Wolf's class at the Improv. So we're supporting Terry. Terry and Larry are good friends. So it was probably one of the worst sets I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Terry is so talented, but he was not the word. It was just he was like pacing.
Right.
He was just pacing a lot. Like maybe And I just remember I went to the bathroom with his girlfriend. We were in the bathroom, and I was just like, I feel like I can do that after seeing him.
Yeah.
And Leslie's a friend from Penn. I take Leslie's class. I have so much fun. and then I take it again. The tape I get from the second, which I wasn't even going to have it taped, and I end up using for 3 years, was CAA. Like the one that I don't even think I'd make up on. Because I was bloated. I'm like, and Leslie was so supportive. She wanted me to TA the class, and then we met, I think, in Jerry's. We met, it's funny, Zach. Where did we meet?
Zach.
Oh, because I remember I was like, I don't think I was in your class.
No, we never did class together.
That's what I couldn't remember. That's what I thought.
Zach was in my class, and he kept being like, we're sitting in there, you don't know any, I mean, to me, I was, I had a very inflated sense of self, and you go into this room, and it's like all these kids in this shitty community room in this church, and nobody laughs at anything you say, and they're like, why that old guy, I bet he smells weird. And but Zach was in there, and they'd be like, Jerry would be like, well, we should go to a show, anyone have some shows coming up? And he'd be like, my aunt has a show. I'm like, I don't think I want to go to Zach's aunt's show.
You go to the Giggle Patch in Encinitas to see his aunt, and then drinks on shore.
And then I remember you came because
I remember you were shocked when you met me
at the Union.
Yes,
Union Comedy. Or
we both were performing. I remember you had this great set, this really funny set,
out, and I was like, whoa, this is Zach's aunt.
Yes, I remember because of the weirdness of like Larry being the youngest, his older sisters who had Zach. Yeah. I mean, this is not no one listening is gonna give a shit about this at all. But they're Irish, so they're very into cousin and aunt. They refer to everyone as Aunt Fee, and I'm like, that's weird. Yeah, so that's right.
And so you had you just taken Jerry's class at that like taken it like the year before or something? You were doing a show at that point at M Cafe that you
so it's probably 2 years before M Bar, and that was a big deal too. Yeah, because I was like, that was everything that's happened. I feel like, by the way, it's just been so serendipitous and random, and like, M Bar Leslie will just like call M Bar's looking for shows. You should just, and I just put something together, a Comedy Central stage. And it was like all women, so it like started out as all women, and I'm like, fuck women.
And now you have Eat, Pray, Fuck at the Improv. Yeah. That's once a month, right? Yeah. That's it.
So that's the same. That's what the show has been. Thanks. Yeah. So that started as Fielding and Friends. But I remember I went to the Improv. They're like, you're not a celebrity. Yeah, it's not Fielding and Friends. Right. Yeah.
Eat, Pray, Fuck is great.
Yeah. Eat, Pray, Fuck is fun. Title. So that.
And has that been fun? I mean, it must be. Is it hard to put that on every month?
It's a lot of work, but now it's sort of gotten its own groove, and the Improv is really great and supportive. Right. I mean, it's interesting. Like, that's not an easy room, the Lab.
No, it's a weird.
And every comedians say that all the time.
And it is, you're kind of like, you come in the door and then you sit right down.
Yes.
I don't know. There's
something about
vibe.
The sound or the way it's placed. I mean, like Michael Costa's like, I can't stand that room. Like,
it's funny because it also seems like it's definitely a room that builds on its energy.
Yes,
as the night
that's
goes
exactly right.
on,
That's why it's funny. Like, people, I get sort of deluged about people, but it's like, but the reason it is sold out the last. But it's like, I just have this formula where like, I am the mascot, I am the like non-professional comedian, and I just literally just try to book headliners because I've seen. It's such a hard room that you have to have just like a killer for it to. Yeah. I mean, it's made me such a stronger comic in that, like, just hosting, stepping out for the first time at like 9:01, or it was 8 o'clock before.
Right, and just stepping into a cold room.
Oh my God. And like freezing cold. And then having like comedians, like big comedians watching you who are on my lineup.
And you're like,
Right. And so I've worked out so much Al-Anon stuff. And like, it's been really great in the last year. I mean, I remember one time, like, Dan St. Germain was like, I think Fielding just had a breakdown on stage. And, like, he wasn't wrong. And, like, he's bombed, like, just as many times at my show as he has destroyed. Right.
I saw him destroy your show.
Okay, really funny. Destroy, right? But then he's had times where, like, literally I thought he was having a breakdown. I've seen Margaret Cho destroy too, and then just like,
What do you see as the, like, is the show, it's weird because it's like, stand-up is such a, it's such a fluky thing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't happen for most people, and like, the thing is, like, on some level, the show just has to be the end unto itself. Like, you know, you're doing it because it's just a cool thing to do, and it gets you out there, and it forces you to be alive in the world and open and
make these connections. With other,
and just in
I've
touch.
Made friends with a couple of the comedians. We've become friends, which is
that show you put on at the tennis place was that's amazing. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean that it's you write tennis, but like your audience. That's the thing. That's the problem.
So
like I knew that like. We can almost sketch the Tennis Pros package blindfolded like that. That's gonna do well, but it's like I don't particularly. The Saturday night audience. That's another thing where it's like it's made me really like bump up my skills of like reading a room if this material isn't.
But so
switch it up.
Eat, Pray, Fuck is a Saturday night show.
Now it used to be Friday,
right?
Yeah. It was easier Friday nights.
Right. Saturday is harder because people are like ready to party, or
they're not ready to party. They're like thinking, contemplative, like entertainment. Friday night, I feel like they're like, Bobby, we got off work. Let's blow some.
Right.
Yeah, no. It's a totally like, and I take responsibility. It's always my fault.
Right.
It's not the audience's.
I'm with
you. It really, I'm not.
But the audience is hard,
Oh, it feels like night and day. The Friday and Saturday,
right.
like Friday night was like, you just like Billy Gardell from Mike and Molly. So Larry's friendly with him. So I had him on my show once, and and I remember he's like, hey, like, do you mind if I give you some notes? But in this great way. It was hard, but it was basically like, just be honest. Like, it was almost like he saw me working really hard. And I was, I think, really nervous because he was on.
I didn't know he was a stand-up.
Oh, huge. He does
really?
Arenas.
That's
huge.
Wow. That's wild.
But and then you know what? I was going through a thing. And by the way, if I'm not, like, filled up the celestial gas tank of, like, meetings and feel good, I won't necessarily. And do my second meditation, I don't have as easy a set. I have to feel spiritually. I know this may sound strange, but it's if I'm missing a meeting, I'm a little more negative, a little more frenetic, and a little too quick.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely find meditating before I go on stage is a huge help because then...
Isn't it?
I mean, it's terrifying, the idea that I'm going to turn my brain off instead of... Because I used to just, like, have my opener, like, committed to memory. Yeah. And I don't know, I had Zach on here the other day who was saying that he likes to open with a joke he's written in the room. Which I think is a great idea because then
I do that too.
Then you're like, it's all about the room, and...
That will never let you down.
Yeah, that's really good.
I know that. I do that too because it's I always have a little note card and I generally never use it, but I write and then I put it in my back pocket because Laurie Komar and Jack occasionally I was like in case I have some emotional shootout or a stroke on stage. It's just like this psychological
me too.
thing.
I always have it, and I
don't even really refer to it.
Sometimes I'll even be holding it and I never look at it. That's my dog.
Hi buddy. But Billy was gonna. What an adorable dog. I'm not even a dog person, but I think it's adorable. Oh, but Billy's like, you got to get him in the first 7 seconds.
Wow, that's not a lot of time.
I know, but just hearing him say that was very helpful.
Still longer than that guy you fucked at your bottom.
Oh. Still,
the teenager.
Good callback. That was quite a callback. For some reason, I also fucked a deaf guy. So for some reason, my brain just went to the deaf guy for some reason. Because I was like, well, because I don't know. I do tell this story sometimes and like, it's a real crowd, but I was like, am I going to tell the deaf story? Because my thing about it was like, everyone talks about their bottom, but they don't talk about their top.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, Fielding, this has been amazing. So great.
I've had a blast. Thank you so much.
Really,
you are an amazing comedian and a gifted podcaster. And
such a good conversation.
Yeah, this was wonderful. I feel like I don't have to go to a meeting for a month.
Awesome. Drunkalogs cover art is designed and created by John DeManil, and the Drunkalogs theme song is composed and performed by Stephen Stout. I am Nick Morton.